My parents skipped my surgery for my sister's vacation, so I cut contact. The morning of my scheduled surgery, I woke up at 5 a.m. with my stomach in knots. I had been dealing with chronic pain for months, and the doctors finally agreed that the procedure was necessary. I checked my phone expecting messages from my parents, maybe something supportive or reassuring. Instead, I found a text from my mom sent at midnight telling me they wouldn't be able to make it because they were driving to the coast for my sister's spring break trip. I stared at that message for what felt like hours, reading it over and over again. My surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m., and here I was completely alone. The hospital required someone to drive me home afterward, and I had assumed my parents would be there. I had specifically asked them weeks ago to keep this day free, and they had promised they would be there for me. The panic started setting in as I realized I had no backup plan. I called my mom, hoping maybe there was some misunderstanding. She answered on the fourth ring, and I could hear the highway noise in the background. She explained that my sister had been looking forward to this trip for months, and they couldn't disappoint her. She suggested I could reschedule the surgery for a more convenient time. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. This wasn't some minor procedure that could be easily rescheduled. I had already taken time off work, prepared for weeks, and more importantly, I was in constant pain. Every day was a struggle, and I had been counting down to this surgery as my chance to finally feel normal again. With trembling hands, I started calling friends, desperately hoping someone could help me on such short notice. Most people were already at work or had commitments they couldn't break. I felt pathetic begging people to drop everything for me, especially when my own parents couldn't be bothered to do the same. Finally, my college roommate answered. He lived an hour away but immediately said he would drive over. I nearly cried with relief. As I waited for him to arrive, I couldn't stop thinking about how my parents had chosen my sister's vacation over my medical needs. It wasn't the first time they had prioritized her wants over my actual needs, but this felt different. This felt like betrayal. The surgery went well, but the recovery was brutal. I spent 3 days mostly bedridden, relying on food delivery apps and managing my pain medication schedule alone. My parents called once to check how everything went, but the conversation was brief and felt obligatory. They were busy enjoying beach activities and didn't seem particularly concerned about my recovery. During those long, painful days alone in my apartment, I had plenty of time to think about our family dynamics. I realized that this pattern had been going on for years. My sister was always the priority, always the one whose needs came first. Her school events, her social activities, her emotional needs, everything revolved around making sure she was happy and comfortable. I started remembering specific incidents from growing up. When I had the flu and missed my high school graduation practice, my parents attended my sister's dance recital instead of helping me catch up. When I got accepted to my dream college, the celebration was cut short because my sister was upset about not making the cheerleading squad. The list went on and on. 2 weeks after my surgery, my parents returned from their trip. They called to see how I was doing, and I could hear the guilt in their voices. My mom kept asking if I needed anything, if I wanted them to visit, if there was anything they could do to help. But it felt too late. The damage was done, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were only being attentive now, because they felt bad about abandoning me. The next family gathering revealed something that made everything even worse. My sister casually mentioned how she had posted about the beach trip on social media, and several of her friends had commented asking where our parents were. She laughed about how she had to explain that they had skipped my surgery to come with her on vacation. I felt sick to my stomach. Not only had they prioritized her trip over my medical needs, but she was actually bragging about it to her friends. She seemed to think it was funny that our parents had chosen her vacation over my surgery. There was no awareness, no guilt, no recognition that what they had done was hurtful. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I went home and blocked all of their numbers. I unfriended them on social media and deleted the family group chat. I needed space to process what had happened and figure out how I wanted to move forward. The silence was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in my life, I wasn't getting constant updates about family drama or being asked to accommodate my sister's latest crisis. My phone felt strange without the regular stream of family messages, but there was also a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. My decision to cut contact didn't go unnoticed. Within a week, I started getting messages from extended family members asking what was wrong. My aunt called to say my parents were worried sick and couldn't understand why I wasn't returning their calls. My grandmother sent me a long text about family forgiveness and how blood is thicker than water. I realized that my parents had told everyone their version of the story, painting themselves as confused and hurt parents who didn't understand why their son had suddenly gone silent. They had conveniently left out the part about skipping my surgery for a vacation. When I explained the real situation to my aunt, the tone of her messages changed completely. The guilt trip started in earnest after that. My mom created a fake social media account to message me, begging me to talk to them. She said they were willing to do anything to make things right, that they loved me and couldn't bear the thought of losing me over a misunderstanding. She kept calling it a misunderstanding, as if abandoning me for surgery was just some innocent mistake. My sister also reached out, but her message was different. She was angry and defensive, saying I was being dramatic and selfish. She accused me of trying to ruin the family over one little incident. She said I was jealous of her and had always been jealous of the attention she received. Her complete lack of empathy or understanding confirmed that I had made the right decision. Months passed and I found myself actually enjoying the peace and quiet. I wasn't constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid family drama. I wasn't being asked to drop everything to solve my sister's problems or listen to my parents complain about her latest crisis. For the first time in years, I could focus on my own life and my own healing. My recovery from surgery was progressing well, and I was finally pain-free for the first time in months. I threw myself into hobbies I had neglected, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with, and started feeling like myself again. The absence of family stress was like lifting a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. But the drama wasn't over. My parents decided to escalate things by showing up at my apartment unannounced. I came home from work to find them sitting in the hallway outside my door, looking tired and desperate. My mom immediately started crying when she saw me, and my dad looked like he had aged 10 years. They begged me to let them in to talk things through, to give them a chance to explain. My mom kept saying they had made a mistake, that they realized now how much they had hurt me. She promised things would be different, that they would prioritize my needs, that they were ready to change. I stood there listening to their promises, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Part of me wanted to believe them, wanted to go back to having a family, even if it was flawed. But I also knew that this wasn't the first time they had made promises to do better. This was just the first time there had been real consequences for their actions. I told them I needed more time, that I wasn't ready to talk yet. They left reluctantly, but not before my mom slipped a handwritten letter under my door. In it, she detailed all the ways they planned to make things right, all the changes they were willing to make, all the reasons why family should stick together. Reading that letter was painful because it showed that she understood exactly what they had done wrong. She knew that they had consistently put my sister's wants above my needs. She knew that they had failed me when I needed them most. She knew that their behavior had been hurtful and damaging. But knowing and changing are two different things. The final turning point came when I discovered something that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. While helping my college roommate move, I found some old photos from our graduation day. In one of them, I could see my parents in the background, not at my sister's recital like they had told me, but at a barbecue with their friends. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. They hadn't missed my graduation practice for my sister's recital. They had missed it to hang out with their friends. They had lied to me about the reason, using my sister as an excuse to avoid taking responsibility for their choices. This revelation changed everything. It wasn't just about them prioritizing my sister over me. It was about them being willing to lie and manipulate to avoid accountability. It was about them creating a false narrative to justify their selfish decisions. It was about them being fundamentally dishonest about their priorities and values. I realized that all those years of feeling like I was competing with my sister for my parents' attention had been based on a lie. They weren't choosing her over me out of love or concern for her well-being. They were choosing whatever was easiest or most convenient for them, and then creating stories to justify their choices. The anger I felt was different from anything I had experienced before. It wasn't just hurt or disappointment. It was the deep, burning rage that comes from realizing you've been systematically lied to and manipulated by the people who are supposed to love you most. I made the decision to make my no-contact permanent. I changed my phone number, moved to a different apartment, and made sure they had no way to reach me. I informed my extended family that I was done with the situation and asked them to respect my boundaries. Some understood, others didn't, but I was past caring about everyone else's opinion. The first year was the hardest. Holidays felt empty and strange without family traditions. I had to learn how to celebrate birthdays and special occasions on my own terms. I had to figure out how to build a support system from friends and chosen family, instead of relying on blood relatives. But slowly, I started to heal. I stopped waiting for my phone to ring with family drama. I stopped feeling guilty about putting my own needs first. I stopped making excuses for people who had consistently shown me that I wasn't a priority in their lives. My physical health continued to improve after the surgery, but more importantly, my mental health was better than it had been in years. I wasn't constantly stressed about family obligations or worried about the next crisis. I wasn't trying to earn love and attention from people who had already decided I wasn't worth their time. 3 years later, I'm in a completely different place. I've built a life surrounded by people who actually care about my well-being. I've learned to set boundaries and stick to them. I've discovered what it feels like to be truly valued and supported by the people in my life. Sometimes I wonder what my parents tell people about why their son doesn't talk to them anymore. I wonder if they've learned to take responsibility for their actions, or if they're still painting themselves as the victims in this story. But mostly, I don't think about them at all. The surgery that started this whole mess was successful, and I'm completely pain-free now. But the real healing happened when I finally found the courage to cut out the source of emotional pain in my life. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we're supposed to love unconditionally, but love should never come at the cost of our own well-being and self-respect.